We got on. Yay. Hello, everyone. Diana Rankin here, and there's our little Piper behind us. She's sleeping. She was under my feet a few minutes ago, so I'm glad she went back to her little bed there so you can see her. Juliet says, hello, Diana and Piper. Well, hello, Juliet. I'm so glad to be with you today. I will tell you, I had some dental work done, and my face is a little bit swollen yet. So if you notice that, I'm fine. It's just from dental work. It does kind of set my smile a little bit off, but we're fine. What we're going to talk about today is, I want to first of all tell you that the predictions for July, I did do June and July together. So go back a couple of videos and it's June, July predictions, and they'll be there for you. Okay. What we are going to talk about today is a question from one of our readers, or excuse me, from one of our followers, our listeners. And it's, does it help to work with the spirit guide like your Philip? If so, why, how, and how do you connect? So we're going to talk about that. I want to give people just a couple of seconds more to come on here, but we're going to get started because I'm going to tell you a personal story, and then we're going to read what Philip has to say about spirit guides, how to connect them, why work with the spirit guide, et cetera, et cetera. But I have a couple of stories to tell you as we go along because I think the stories are always helpful illustrations. So the first story is a personal story for me, and it comes when I was 5 years old. I had just started elementary school. I was in the first grade, and our teacher taught us, of course, to be respectful, but also taught us to ask questions, good questions. And we were, I guess you would call it critical thinking that we were taught even at 5 years old in the first grade. I don't think that happens anymore. In fact, I don't think 5-year-olds go to the first grade anymore. I think they start with kindergarten, which we did not have at my age where I lived. So we went into first grade. We learned how to ask questions and look at what we were studying and make sure we understood it. And questions help us understand things, don't they? So I took this into our local Sunday school, or where my family went to church. And yes, I think most of you know by now, I was raised in a church, but I left many years ago. And one of the reasons I left is we're going to talk about, because when I was 5 years old, I asked a question. And that question really, Sunday school teachers, and I think this, they were moms, they were grandmas. So the mothers and the grandmothers volunteered to be the Sunday school teachers. They were not degreed teachers, how to deal with children, but how they dealt with their own children is how they dealt with us in Sunday school. So I asked the question, why do we have to talk to Jesus? Can't we just talk directly to God? Well, that confused the Sunday school teacher. She thought I was being disrespectful, which I didn't mean to be, but that's, I guess, how it came across. And I was kicked out of Sunday school at age 5. I was sent to be with my grandmother, who they thought could control me, into her class. Now, my grandmother's class was taught by a man because the adult classes were taught by the men. You know, that question, why are we taught to talk to Jesus in prayer instead of going directly to God, never left me. Stayed with me for years and years until I found the answer. And the answer for me was very simple, really. We prefer, when we're talking our spiritual life, when we're asking for something, when we're saying a prayer, God is so evasive, especially when I was little. God was so evasive. Who was this big being? Well, I've learned that God is just the energy of pure love. And so to be able to communicate, I liked a human being or the feeling of somebody who would understand me. And that's where Jesus was here. But for me as an adult, it became my spirit guide, Philip. So that for me was a memory of being kicked out of Sunday school, but I was going to find out why. I was going to find out why. I do want to let you know how I met Philip, but first I'm going to read you what Philip wrote to the questions. Does it help us to work with a spirit guide like Philip? If so, why? How? And how do you connect? Well, here's what Philip says. Here's his response to this. Does it help to work with a spirit guide like Philip? First, let us explain who a spirit guide is, and then we'll explain how we help you. You have many beings around you, many guides with different purposes, healers, protectors, and so on. Your main guide, I call the communicator because we've got to communicate, right? Your main guide, who has been with you since birth, is a former esoteric teacher. I'm going to stop here and tell you another story because it's some of you have heard this story. It's I think very funny. A friend of mine and who studied with me for a few years or several years actually, and we became close friends. And she started working with Philip, which many of you may start doing. And she wondered though why Diana's the teacher and she's the student. And so she asked Philip why. And Philip said, when the three of us were together in another lifetime, she was the pretty one. So our hierarchy father said she had to get married, where Diana had to go study because the other friend, or my friend, was in those days the pretty one. She still is pretty, by the way, but she was the pretty one who had to get married. And I had to go study with Philip. So that's why in this life, I'm the teacher. Whereas in the last life, the three of us were together, or one of the lives, maybe the first one, the three of us were together. She was the pretty one. So I love that story. I think it's funny. Okay, Philip goes on to say, although students are often quite bright, teachers know more than students because of more study, more experiences, and in the case of spirit guides, more lifetimes. Your spirit guide is a being with eons of learning. Do you not wish to tap into this wisdom for your own growth and help in this life? A spirit guide is able to communicate with you because the guide has lived in the human realm, thus understands your struggles. It is like teaching a class and learning from the teacher who can guide you, for the teacher has already studied and mastered the lessons. Take advantage of their knowledge and wisdom. When you work with your spirit guide, you are tapping into your deeper spiritual self. Do you not wish to work with the wisdom of your higher self? To do so, merely ask, and we are here. We've been together for a very long time and will continue to be together much longer. That was Philip telling us work with your spirit guide. And again, we have healers around us, we have protectors, we have many, many people around us. But let's make it easy and work with the spirit guide. Now, I want to tell you a couple of things. I'm going to tell you how Philip says to meet your spirit guide, just ask. I don't think it's quite that easy for most of us humans. So I do have a blog on the blog, and I have another video out there, how to connect with your spirit guide. One is 5 steps and one is 7, because one I just elaborated a little bit more. But basically, before you go to sleep at night, have a book or notepad or a journal next to your bed and ask to meet your spirit guide. And you'll wake up around 4 a.m. and write down a question. And when you write down a question, then just start writing the answer. Don't think about it. Just I always say the pen, let the wisdom of the pen give you keep writing out your answer. If you think about it, you probably won't be able to come up with as good of an answer as if you don't think about it. Read it later or read it then, but come back and read it later to really see the wisdom. Okay, now how do you come to know a spirit guide's name? Well, spirit guides don't care about their names, and honestly, most of their names we probably couldn't pronounce anyway. But how did I get Philip's name? Well, because I like a name. I like to use a name. And so I was actually having a reading, this goes way back, a reading from another reader, another psychic, and I asked Philip's name, and the answer came back. It is the second name in your name book. Now, a name book is as a writer, if I'm writing fiction, I may look for names and what that name means. So I have this book that tells different names and what the meaning of the names. So I looked in the name book, and the second name down was Philip, and that's how I came up with Philip's name. Whether that was his name in real life or not, it doesn't matter. It's a name that we get to call that person. I will tell you another story. This was at one of my workshops. It was one that I did, Awakening to Your Deeper Intuition. And that one of the women there, this goes way back also, one of the women there's name was Donna. And Donna, on Friday night, we would do the process of what I just told you, only again going into more depth, which you could look at the blog or the other video, and it will go into more depth on that for you. And Donna came after we did our process and came and said the next day, I got a name, but how do I know that's the right name? And I said, trust it. Trust it. What was the name you got? And she said, well, I got the name Henri, but he said I'd recognize him by Henry. And I said, that's great. And I said, now all you have to do is ask for this to be confirmed. Ask for a sign. What kind of sign? I said, well, finally, this kept going on and on through the weekend. And I kept saying, stop on your way home. Stop. You'll make a stop. Stop and get gas. Well, I don't need gas. Well, stop and get gas anyway. And you'll get a confirmation that your spirit guide's name is Henry. She still wasn't going to listen to me. And we were having another conversation. And several times over the weekend, I said, stop and get gas. So finally she said, okay, I'm going to stop and get gas. And the reason she finally said she would accept that is one of the gentlemen in the workshop walked past us and said, Donna, stop and get gas. And she said, okay. But she said, I'm not going to stop anywhere around here. I'm going to stop where I always go because I know everybody who works there. So she stopped for gas. And as she's pumping gas, a man pulled in behind her at the gas station. And she looks at him and she starts laughing. And she said, your name's Henry, isn't it? And he said, yes. So my friends, if you want to call your spirit guide by a name, those are a couple of stories that might help you out. But as Philip said, if you want to meet your spirit guide, just ask. Sometimes we make up the names. That's fine too. And do you want to work with Philip? Sure, go ahead. That works too. But the guide who's been with you your whole life, you also want to meet and work with. And who knows, maybe that is Philip. All right, my friends, thank you for being with me today. I love you, and I'm so grateful. And I hope you read the message that I left for everybody, because every thought you have, every word you speak, every action, you are putting love out into the world. And we thank you. I want to just take a moment here and say, Sheila, thank you. She says, hello, Diana and Piper. And hello, everyone. Happy Friday. And she says, Diana, you are also pretty, because she's been telling Piper how pretty she is. Well, thank you. Even with a swollen lip and jaw, right? All right. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here, being a part of our community. And I will see you all next week. Remember the July predictions. Look for June and July. Also, my website, it's just my name. It's just dianarankin.com. Go to the blog and put in something like, I think it's like spirit guide or 5 steps to meet your spirit guide or 7 steps. Also, there is a video out there that I've made. So if you want more information on contacting your spirit guide, there you go. Sharon says, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you all. I love you. Thank you for the love that you send to us. And thank you for the love you receive from us. And by the way, Piper's doing really well. And her little fancy skirt, she's getting a little more used to them now. But considering that she was diagnosed with bladder cancer, she's doing great. And I thank you all for your prayers and your love for her and healing energy. Thank you. See you soon. If not next week, we'll see you then. Bye. If not before next week. See what happens when you get dental work? It's a little goofy.